UFC 309 is coming up. That's Jon Jones taking on Stipe. Jon Jones has really been the talk of the town for, it feels like these last few weeks, last few months, because, and actually just recently, because he came out and said that he is ducking Tom Aspinall, said it without actually saying it, and saying that his next fight's going to be against Alex Pereira instead. So he's in charge of his legacy. He basically just said, I'm going to pick the fights that's going to, play into my story so that when he walks away, he'll be undefeated. He'll have the big names on his resume. I understand that. So by doing that, he is ducking Tom Aspinall. I feel like that is just a fact. He doesn't want to fight the current best heavyweight in the division, and instead is taking other fights for his legacy, being selfish, writing his own story. That's literally him ducking Tom Aspinall. So I've seen people say this, that if he is ducking Tom Aspinall, that's actually going to hurt his legacy. That to me is insane. To the people that are saying that this chapter of Jon Jones's legacy, that this even matters when you're trying to compare him as the greatest fighter of all time to some of the other guys, this is just the icing on the cake. I don't even really understand where people are going with this. We said, if you asked me 5 years ago, who's the greatest fighter of all time? It's Jon Jones. If you ask me today, it's Jon Jones. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was already the greatest fighter of all time. Everything he's been doing since 2020, that was the last fight that he had at 205. Everything that he's doing at heavyweight is basically irrelevant. It's just it's the sugar on top. It's the cherry on top. Like, this guy has went through generations of talent. He's been in the UFC since August 9th of 2008. Got the belt in 2011. He was the youngest champion of all time. And then from there, he just went on an absolute warpath and just set records along the way. So, obviously, two-time light heavyweight champion, right? He had some of his reigns broken up there because he had some not so great things going on in his life, or was potentially cheating. I don't know. But so he's a two-time light heavyweight champion. He has 11 successful title defenses. Okay, he was the longest light heavyweight champion ever with 1,500 days of being a champion. He has the most wins in UFC title fights with 15. He has the most UFC title fights in general with 16. Second most submissions in UFC title fights. Tied with Mighty Mouse for third most finishes in UFC title fights. Like, as I just mentioned, the youngest fighter ever to become a UFC champion. Eighth multi-divisional champion in UFC history because he did move to heavyweight. And I just want to right there also say that his move to heavyweight, we waited so long for him to actually make that decision. We didn't know how he was going to look. He didn't fight a scrub. I hate this narrative too. He fought Cyril Gane, a guy that I've been following for a long time now, and who I actually believe was probably the best heavyweight in the division until Jon Jones came into the mix and until Tom Aspinall kind of had his ascension. I thought Cyril Gane was the guy. I thought he should have beat Francis Ngannou, and he really should have because he made one bonehead mistake. Francis took advantage of it and barely squeaked out a decision, but Cyril Gane is a legitimate heavyweight guy. Jon Jones goes in there and subs him in 2 minutes. I kind of feel like that's one of the most underrated wins of Jon Jones's career. One of the most under talked about UFC wins, championship wins we've probably ever seen. So all those things that he did at light heavyweight at 205, he was already considered the greatest champion of all time. Moves up in weight, beats Cyril Gane convincingly in 2 minutes. So now he's a double champ, 2 different weight classes. That just added to his legacy. That just further made him the greatest of all time, which he already was. It further made him the greatest fighter of all time. And ducking Tom Aspinall literally means nothing. This is a comparison that I want to make. Like, think about Tom Brady, 6 Super Bowl wins before he went to Tampa Bay, right? He was already the greatest quarterback of all time. If he had went to Tampa Bay and people were saying like, oh, if he doesn't get another ring here, he can't be the greatest of all time. Nobody was saying that. If he went to Tampa Bay and lost in the playoffs in the first round, he's still the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, Tom Brady got another ring. That's neither here nor there, but That's just crazy. It'd be like saying Michael Jordan still needed to win another ring when he went to the Wizards to become the greatest of all time. And if he didn't, that was going to hurt his legacy. If Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, didn't win another ring, that was going to hurt his legacy. Those are ridiculous statements, and the same is true for Jon Jones. Whether or not he fights Tom Aspinall doesn't matter. Even if he goes out there and loses to Stipe this weekend, which he won't, that doesn't affect his legacy. He's already the greatest fighter of all time. He's already done so much for the sport and in the sport. It just doesn't matter. He is past his prime. Let's not worry about it. Like, he is past his prime. Let's not worry about what a 40-year-old Jon Jones could have done if he fought Tom Aspinall tomorrow, who's, 28 years old in his prime. Tom's probably going to win that fight. It just doesn't matter because Jon Jones is past his prime. I do believe that. But everything else he did in the past made him the greatest fighter of all time. What he does between now and the end of his career doesn't matter. Anything that he wins is just the cherry on top. So I've seen people out there questioning the legacy of Jon Jones, especially when it comes down to picking Stipe over Tom Aspinall. And I'm here to tell you that that is just straight insanity. It doesn't matter. He is going to be the greatest fighter of all time, no matter what. End of rant.